hi. Hi all my cat lovers, happy Sunday. This is April, your cat health coach, and Mr. Stubby here. And don't normally do a video on Sunday, but I missed my Friday video because I've been fighting a virus for like a week now. So yeah, I'm not feeling my best, and it's like 100 degrees out literally and humid in Florida. It's nasty right now. And Stubby, if you see his eye, he's all winky there. He escaped out the front door an hour ago and tried to have a ball running through the bushes. Well, yeah, we think he scratched his eye on one of the bushes, poor little guy. So neither of us are up to par, but the show must go on, right? So this is part 2 of my new series, Raw Cat Food, all about raw cat food series. And I honestly don't know how many parts there's gonna be because I'm just coming up with ideas as I go along, and then before I wrap the series, I'll ask everyone, I'll list out all the videos that I've done and ask if there's any more information any of you still want to know or want me to discuss before we wrap it. So it'll be probably a little bit of a lengthy series because it's a huge topic. There's so much to cover. But part 1 last week, sorry, my camera's telling me it's running low. Last week I started off with just discussing what I know about raw cat food feeding. I've been personally feeding my cats raw for almost 10 years now, so I have a lot of experience with it, and all of the little nudist partners that I've worked with previously, most of them have all fed raw food as well, so we have a lot of knowledge under our belt about feeding raw food. So that's the first video. If you missed it, you can watch that on my dedicated Facebook page or my YouTube channel. So today I'm talking about the risk or perceived risk of bacteria or parasites. Yeah, I know, I'm just gonna let you go because he's just not happy with that eye scratch. So this is a huge thing that a lot of people are, this is what brings on the fear of feeding raw food is, am I going to make my cat sick? Am I going to give them a parasite or a bacteria? So the first thing to know, and this is a big thing I've seen going on a lot lately as the raw food movement grows, which I think is amazing. I'm such a huge supporter, as you all know. However, there's a lot of new companies popping up selling the raw food, and one thing that a lot of companies are doing now is they're starting to sell the raw food with entrails, which is the intestines or the guts mixed into the grinds. And this is something that absolutely should not be happening. This is number one biggest thing is we don't want to be feeding our pets, dogs or cats, the raw guts of other animals, because this is where the risk of bacterial infections and parasites come from in the meat. So this is a new trend that absolutely I want to warn everybody to stay away from those type of products. What we want to do is only feed the muscle meats of the proteins that we're feeding and the organs. And muscle meats themselves and organ meats themselves, they don't have risk for parasites or bacteria. That's not where parasites and bacteria live in the body. They live in the GI tract. So as long as you're removing that part from the meat, then you're severely reducing that risk. So that's fact number 1. And the company I order from, rawfeedingmiami.com, they sell the grinds. The ones that I purchase are just the meat, the organ, and the bone. So that being said, there is, of course, a risk of cross-contamination when we're purchasing meats from, a company that's processing lots of meat all day long. As we know, there can be bacterial cross-contamination just like in our own personal food. This is why we cook our meats and why we rinse our spinaches and lettuces and all that stuff, because of risk of bacterial infection in the foods. So also there is one type of known parasitic bacteria called toxoplasmosis that can penetrate into the muscle meat. It's very rare, but it can insist in the muscle meat, especially in pork. This is one reason why I choose personally to just not ever feed any raw pork. It's I don't know, just for a number of reasons too. Pigs kind of tend to eat a lot of different stuff, and I feel that their meat is too fatty for a cat. Cats, it's not a normal prey model for a cat. They would never eat a pig, and then just this risk and the muscle meats. There's my dog. She's saying hi to all of you. Anyway, trying not to fall off topic here. So how do we prevent the bacterial cross-contamination in the raw meat and something like toxoplasmosis to keep our cats safe? Well, you get your raw meat, and whether it's your raw grind or you're doing the meat and you're adding the supplements to make up for the bone, but either way, you need to freeze the meats for at least 3 days. If you freeze it for at least 3 days, that's been scientifically proven to kill off any of the bacteria and even the cyst forms that may be in the meat that cause a risk. So that's all you need to do is collect and if you're someone that's getting your meat from the grocery store, ground turkey or ground chicken, and then feeding it to your cats, just bring it home and then put it into your portions, whatever you're doing, and then put it in the freezer first before you feed it to your pets, and then you're eliminating that risk. And this, my point too is this is something like what they do at sushi restaurants for us that like to eat raw fish. A lot of the sushi is flash frozen, and that is what helps eliminate that risk. So the next point to make as well is that there's just this big hype and fear over things like salmonella being in the meat, and this is where a lot of negative news has come from feeding raw food diet. And there's even a report on the Veterinary Information Network that I looked up that talks about salmonella in our pets from being fed raw food. And the thing that they found in the study that they looked at in the literature is there was zero difference between pets who were diagnosed with salmonella in their feces, is what they tested, in pets that were sick, that had active illness with diarrhea, or in pets that were completely healthy. There was no difference, because things like these infections that sound so scary to us, like, oh no, salmonella, it's actually a normal harboring bacteria in our animals' intestines, in our cats and dogs' intestines. It's just a normal part of their flora all the time anyway. And so then the other point is our cats and dogs, but especially our cats, their GI systems are really made for raw food. I mean, that's just how their creation happened. They are just made to eat raw meat. They have, number one, very short intestinal tracts. They're not like ours, where, I don't even remember the statistics, 16 feet long or something. They're not all long and go on forever like our systems. They're very short digestive tracts. So this allows meat to go in and be digested really quickly. I've read before that it's guesstimated about 2-3 hours, and they completely digest the meal that they just took in. So what that does is it allows them to eat the meat and start digesting it so quickly that even if the meat had been tainted with some other infectious bacteria, it moves along their tracts so quickly that it doesn't set in them like what it does when we eat meat that might be contaminated and cause an active proliferation of infection. It just goes in and they digest it. Also, their GI tract is very, very acidic with a pH of only 1, so that's very low. That's, I believe, battery acid is like 1.4, so they have highly, highly acidic tracts. So the food goes in, they also make more bile than people do. They make extra bile to just, come in and just really get these meats digested really, really quickly. So that's all the things that I've learned through the years that made made me have the faith that I'm not putting my cat at risk. I know all of this. I know how just species appropriate this diet is for them, and that there is actually less risk to feeding a properly balanced, properly fed raw food diet than there is all of these commercially prepared foods. And in fact, my next video next week, I'm going to actually show you guys some statistics on recalls, but I can tell you right now there has been far more recalls of even dry foods, which we would all assume safe, just we reach our hand in there, throw out some dry food and don't even wash our hands. But many dry foods have been tainted with infectious bacteria, and lots of canned foods and stuff have had recalls. So anyway, to wrap it up, the point is also your cat is only going to be at risk of getting ill from any of these type of infections if your pet is not healthy, if they don't have a healthy, robust body. And how do you keep them healthy? Well, you feed them a bio-appropriate, species-appropriate diet, which is a high-protein, raw food diet. Number one, of course, as you all know, I promote a good, commercially prepared, high-quality canned food as well. That's really the second closest thing, unless you're going to home-cooked food too. But this is what you need to do to keep their body strong and healthy, and then they're not at risk for developing an issue, even if they take in a contaminated bacteria from some source. Now, the science says that the way that they become at risk for any of these type of infections, in fact, are from being fed a poor diet. That's a commercially prepared, low protein, high carbohydrate diet, because that alters their whole GI system. It makes their body more acidic overall. They have less bile. Their acidity is affected. Also, if they're on antibiotics, if they're on steroids, if they're chronically stressed, if they have cancer, or if they're aging, if they're in an aging body. And this is another thing I'll get to in another video, but some of my kitty parents I work with, I may not recommend a raw food diet if your cat's been maybe ill for a long time or had something like cancer and is over a certain age. Then we'll stick with a cooked diet just to be on the safe side. But for a generally healthy, cat without compromised system, the raw food diet is going to be the healthiest way to go. So I hope that helps answer some of those concerns and worries for you guys. And of course, there's lots of literature on this on the internet, other videos. I like to source Dr. Becker a lot. She's really one of my main go-tos. She's a world-renowned holistic veterinarian that her and I are very much on the same wavelength about everything. So if you want any further info or resources, just let me know. Hope everybody has a great Sunday. Bye.